Hello everyone, it's David from Grail Games here, and I'm driving to Canberra, and I thought, let's do that thing I've always wanted to do, and that's drive to record a podcast, because I love podcasts, I love board games. Why not do one? Very self-serving. Not really, I just want to talk. So I'm going to talk into my phone, and you're going to hear it, well, if you're listening to this, obviously. If you can't hear it, if you're not listening, you can't hear it. Just like if a tree falls and there's no one to hear it, does it make a sound? If there's a podcast and no one listens to it, does it make a sound? Okay, yes it does. Not very zen, actually. Okay. 21st century Zen lesson over. Let's get on to 21st century gaming podcasting. Now you're probably wondering, why is this on YouTube, not on my favorite podcast app? And that's because I don't know what I'm doing, and all I know how to do is upload to YouTube. So I think when I get home, I'll upload this to YouTube so you can hear it there if the tree is falling in the woods and all that stuff. I know that I'm driving, so I hope the sound is alright. I'm going to pay more attention to the road than I am to you, not because I don't love you, but because I love myself and I don't want to die or kill any animals or anything like that. So let's go back a bit. What the heck is driving to Canberra mean if you're not Australian? I live in Sydney, driving to Canberra for a convention called CanCon. The Can stands for Canberra, the Con stands for Con. I love that guy Con, he's a good guy, and Canberra is one of my favourite places in the world. It's our national capital. Sydney's the state capital of New South Wales. I'm driving about 3 hours to Canberra. Canberra is a beautiful city. It gets a bit of slack because if you're a cool person, there's not much to do in Canberra, but it's a beautiful place, especially if you got a family and all that. It's wide open, parks, bit of a lake there, lots of museums and stuff like that, of course. It's got CanCon. There's a Hog's Breath cafe there, it's all good. So, going to Canberra for CanCon. Now, I think that this show will mostly be me talking about stuff that I like. I am a gamer, that's what I am. But it's also going to be talking about, well, I'll be talking on it about publishing stuff too, because that's what I do. I publish board games a bit with Grail Games. So, hopefully then it's a podcast that's interesting, doubleness, double value, because you're getting stuff from a gamer, you're getting stuff from a publisher all in one go. Let's see. Maybe no one will borrow it. Maybe no one will listen to it, and I'll just delete it secretly one night when no one's looking because it's too embarrassing. So, Australia's been a bit hard done by lately. Drought, fires, all that stuff. By the way, it's January 25, 2020. So we're still on fire. It's not as much as it used to be. We've had a bit of rain. We always have fires, as they say, but not like this. It's been terrible. I don't really want to talk about it. But driving down was great. For the first 45 minutes or so out of Sydney, very green. I actually drove to Canberra 2 weeks ago. It was dead. It was drought, it was brown, it was horrible. When Australian trees are dying, you know, it's pretty bad because they're pretty hardy trees. They're used to droughts and stuff. But anyway, got a bit of rain. It was lovely and green. You know, nature replenishes itself really quick if we let it. If it's allowed to, if it can. If, you know, the weather shows up. If people back out. But now that I'm closer to Canberra, past Goulburn, Australia's first non-coastal town. Congratulations, Goulburn. Love ya. Past the turn off to Yass and Gundagai, there's a track winding back to an old-fashioned shack along the road to Gundagai. I should have gone to Gundagai. I haven't seen the dog on the tucker box there since I was a kid, but sidetrack. But now that I'm close to Canberra, it's much browner again, so the rain hasn't made it this far out. We'll see what it's like in Canberra. They did get rain. They got hail as big as cricket balls, you know, smashing the Parliament House and the cars of the parliamentarians and ministers, whatever. Poor guys, girls. So yeah, I'm on the road to Canberra now. Okay, what am I talking about? So yeah, I was going to say what this show will be all like. So the plan is every time I do this, maybe once a fortnight, for fun really, to get stuff off my chest, I'm going to talk about a topic that I am interested in. I would not do reviews, that's a bit of clash of interest there, but I would talk about games that I'm playing or enjoying in a certain topic. I think today I'm going to do 3 of my favourite car driving board games, talk about that because I'm driving a car. It's hard to think about much else when you're driving than driving. I could do 3 games about missing your family. No, I'll do 3 car driving games, they're more interesting, and I'll talk about maybe Australian conventions, CanCon. I'll also talk about my favourites from 2019 so far, I think, because it's a new year. I don't think I'll do a top 10 because I'm driving, it's a bit hard to concentrate, but I'll just list a few that I've loved and why. And then here's a cool thing, right? So I'm going to talk about conventions, I think, in Australia or gaming in Australia from a gamer's perspective and a publisher's perspective. I'll tell you out of my butt here. I don't know if I might crash in a minute, but this is just the plan. And then I think every week or every fortnight or every month, whenever I get these out, I'll do a little diary on each Grail game that's been published in order. And the first game I did was 101. So at the end of the show, oh, this is a show. If you didn't know, this is a show, right? This is a professional show. That rumbling you hear is not car noise, that is tape recording, right? It's a professional show done 1980s way. That is tape recording, not car rumbling. I'll talk about 101 at the end. So I'm just going to have a break here. And I'll be back in a sec. Alright, I'm back. Let's talk about 3 of my favourite games about car driving. You'll notice I didn't say car racing, car driving. Although I think they're all races. Yeah, so it's actually car racing. But there are games that aren't just racing, I'm sure. Let me think. So I'm not a car person. I don't know anything about cars. They're just functional for me, like clothes. I don't buy them because I like them or want them. I just buy them because I have to have them. So clothes game. No, I mean car driving games. There's a lot, but because I'm not a car person, I haven't played many. So there's that Daytona from GMT. Would love to try that. Looks good. GMT always does a good job. Forget the designer's name. Sorry. I always get annoyed at podcasts where the hosts, yes, I am a host too, a professional host. But I hate often when the host forgets stuff like, what's that name of that game or that thing? But I'm going to do that because I'm driving and I haven't prepared this at all. Talking off my head while I'm scanning for kangaroos, because that'd be my worst nightmare. Not meeting one, but meeting one head on. What am I talking about? Car driving games. So I mentioned one, Daytona. Formula D, originally Formula Day, I have not played either. But I would like to try it one day. You know, it's an actual car driving racing game like Daytona is, where you have to worry about gears and all that sort of stuff. There's Gaslands. I haven't played that, but one day I will buy the book. It's sort of a minis game, but you use cars, like Hot Wheels type things to play it. Matchbox cars. I'd probably use Thomas trains. How about that? Make it my own style of thing, but it's got an X-Wing type template system where you're driving the cars around on the table. I think it's more like a demolition derby type thing where you actually attack, just like in real life, you know, when you're driving you attack each other. Hopefully not. But then there's lots of other car driving games that don't have cars in them. Like Camel Up, probably my favourite racing game ever. You've got Snowtails, which actually that sounds like a system that should be tried in other settings. I mean, it's a game where you play cards for your dogs, your mush dogs, I forget what they're called. You got like a sled. It's a snow sled dog racing game. I've never played it, but I watched a whole game of it because I arrived at this gaming night 5 minutes late and everyone was in a game, so I just watched it. So I felt like I've played it. Very interesting mechanics of that one, where you play different cards to control the left side and the right side of your sled, your dogs, and if so you can lean left and right that way. That's something that should be done again, I think, besides Snowtails 2, which was done. There's probably heaps of car driving or racing games, so I'm just not thinking about them. So let's talk about 3 of my favourite car driving games, because this is an easy topic while I'm driving, and it's an easy topic because I don't really have them or play them, so I can think of 3 off the top of my head without planning. So the first one I'm going to talk about is our kids game. It's called Monza. It's by Hadara. I actually got this secondhand at CanCon like 4 or 5 years ago. My kids love it. I love it. It's a roll and move game. You roll these dice with coloured sides, and you use those dice to move along the track. The track has coloured sections. So if your car is behind a yellow square, you need a yellow one to move onto it. But because the track is divided sort of into 3 columns of colour, you can move, like swerve on the track and move sideways a bit if you have to use as much dice as possible. And there's obstacles to avoid. Only takes about 5-10 minutes, but it's so clever. One of the best roll and move games I've played. I don't know if I'd play it with all adults, but 1 or 2 adults mixed in with 1 or 2 kids, sure, it's lots of fun. Very clever. It shows that roll and move has got legs. Get it? Well, it's not funny, but shows that roll and move has got wheels, and I'd like to see Monza's idea used in a bigger game for grown-up people. So that's Monza by Hadara. Check it out. Don't remember the designer's name. Sorry, Mr. or Mrs. Designer. What's another one? Oh yeah, Downforce Restoration Games. Matthias Kramer. No. Is it Matthias Kramer? Must be Wolfgang Kramer. One of the greatest designers of all time, because this is a remake of an older game. It's had a few names. Daytona. Is it Daytona 500? I don't know American car races, but hang on. Bird on the road, and I'm going at 110, eating something you don't want to know about. I didn't hit it. I'm paying attention on the road, not on you, my lovely listeners. Oh, I hope that doesn't get hit. What was it? Downforce. Such a clever system. It's like Camel Up. You're not controlling the cars. You are just betting on the cars that you think will win. Actually, you are controlling the cars, but you don't own the cars. So you'll play a card that lists on it different car colours and how far they move, and you do it in a specified order. And it's really cool because you can decide what cards to play from your hand. You can bet on what you think will win based on what you've got in your hand, but you can also trick people, like move one car really far up, bet on something else, then don't play anything good for that car. There's a lot of screwage, I guess you could say. Sorry, just a bit distracted. Driving past Lake George on the outskirts of Canberra, massive lake. Hasn't had water since the 90s, I think. That's a bit sad. It's huge, just a flat plain now. Oh, there's heaps of kangaroos out there. And cows. It's what you call a mix. Hey, if animals can live together, why can't humans, hey? Cows. Alright. There is a windmill farm out there, but I can't see it. It's a bit foggy, hazy in the distance there. It's like 8:45 in the morning, but I don't know. Could be just... I hope it's not more smoke. Anyway, so they measure air quality by, I forget what the numbers mean, but hazardous air quality starts at 200 is the rating. See, this is something at least people in Sydney know all about now, because we have to watch it every day. And from memory, the worst that Sydney's had, so 200 is hazardous air quality. We had 2,000 was the worst day I can remember from the bushfires this year so far. And of course I ran home 8 kilometres in the hazardous 2,000 air, because I'm an idiot. But the worst Canberra's had was 4,000. That's pretty smoky. Alright, what were we talking about? So Monza, Downforce. Downforce I played a lot. I loved it. It's beautiful, it's clean, nice design, nice production. But I ended up selling or trading it away because I just decided it was quite similar to Camel Up. And Camel Up I love even more. And I only need 2 of them. Oh, Wombat. Okay, I should stop talking about things that are around me on a nationally broadcast, professionally produced podcast. The third great car driving game off the top of my head that I could think of is Push Car. Is that what it's called? Push Car? I feel like that's wrong. I would have prepped and looked it up if I wasn't driving. Is it called Push Car? You flick them, you don't push them. Push Car? Sounds like a push bike. Sounds boring. Guys, girls, you might have to Google this. Look up disc flicking car racing tabletop game on your friends at Google's website. See if it's Push Car. I think it's Push Car. Anyway, Push Car, and you can get Push Car Mini if it's Push Car. I forget if it's called Push Car now. I'm talking myself out of thinking it's called Push Car. It's a dexterity game. I love dexterity games, especially flicking games. Crokinole is one of the best games of all time, as everyone would know. But this flicking game, you're flicking basically a disc which represents your car along this wooden track. You can do a mini version. The big version I've never done properly, but you can buy all these special loops, spins, jumps, turns, build this awesome track. I mean, building it takes forever each time, but lots of fun flicking that little car around. So 3 very different car driving games. Monza, Downforce, Push Car. It is called Push Car. I'm going to kick myself when I wake up and realise it was called Flicking Grand Prix or something. Anyway, that's 3 driving games. I'll be back when I figure out the next topic. Sayonara. I'm back. Still driving past Lake Gorge. Lake Gorge. It's like saying driving past Mount Hill or St. Christian's Church or something. Alright. I love to play soccer ball soccer. Car driving, that works. Alright, foot walking, no, sort of. Okay, let's go. I think I'll just quickly talk about my favourite games that I can think of off the top of my head so far from 2019 releases. Of course, I haven't played a lot of them, but I played some and I had some favourites. I'm getting really good at focusing in on the games I think I will like, so I know before I play them. So I think I've played 50, 60 games from the year that were released, but they're probably ones I liked 90% of. This is not an exhaustive list or a top 10, but it's something that's fun to do. People love to talk about it, hear it. So I'll do it too. This is not my top 10. I usually do a top 10, but like April, May time. of the next year once I've had a chance to think about it and put things in order and given games a chance to breathe. I really don't like jumping on bandwagons and stuff as a gamer. I like to let things percolate, as they used to say before baristas were invented. Okay, I'll start with a couple off the top of my head that I think could be my games of the year, and then if I can still think of stuff that I've loved, I'll talk about that too. But first out, a shout out to Riverboat by Mr. Kiesling of Azul fame recently. In fact, I think this was by him in the year he did Azul and Heaven and Ale. So it was a big year for him, 2017, I believe. So yeah, it's not a 2019 game, but I'm shouting out Riverboat because it was probably the best game I played in 2019 that was new to me, that was not released 2019. Riverboat was really hard to get in Australia. I don't know if I ever saw it for cheap enough to get. It seemed to have a small print run, or at least not many of it got to Australia here, but I got one secondhand or traded for it. It was brilliant, just my type of game. Mid-weight, I guess Euro, slightly heavier than mid maybe. Lots to think about, but really quick. 45 minutes with 2 players probably. Really nice game. I won't talk about it much, but there you go. So what have I loved from 2019 that was released in 2019? Let's see. Okay, here are some that I've loved. Hadara. This is a drafting game, a card drafting game. It's probably just a touch harder to learn than Seven Wonders, probably the best card drafting game of all time. But it's similar weight to that. You're drafting cards of different colors. These colors move you up different colored tracks for your civilization. They give you different things, and then you use that amount of color, I guess you could say, to do other things. So it's a card drafting engine building game. Really love it. Smooth, simple enough, quick enough, and because it's card drafting, it's all simultaneous play pretty much. That each round has 2 phases. One, you're drafting cards normal from passing hand of cards around. Then you draft from the discards one at a time. So it slows down a bit for that, but it's still really quick. Really love this game. Many will say it's abstract or isn't much theme, but that's right for me. So that's cool. Hadara. I also loved the new Azul Summer Pavilion. It's probably my favorite Azul so far of the 3. Really admire the first Azul. In fact, I got a weird thing with that. When I first played Azul, I gave it like a 6 out of 10. I love abstracts, I really do, and I've got a hard threshold there. It's got to be great, and I just thought it was okay. Just past something I'm not going to talk about on live radio. And but then I played it again. Yeah, this is okay. 7. Played it again. 8. And I just love normal Azul. The second one, Stained Glass of Sintra, I still admire and really like, but it wasn't as good for me. That's fine. Everyone likes their own ones. But Summer Pavilion, it's beautiful. It changes up normal Azul just enough, but it adds some things that I think are really cool. Wild colors, things you can go for on your board for extra tiles, and you get to save your tiles from round to round if you like, before placing them on your board. Really like that. I need more plays of it to decide. I've only played it twice. Need more plays to decide if personally it's something I need to keep as well as normal Azul, or if it is actually the best one. Carnival of Monsters by Richard Garfield. I love Richard Garfield's designs. Of course he did Magic and all that, but actually I haven't loved... Okay, I won't be negative, but yeah, and I liked... he's done... This is like his 3rd card drafting game. He did Treasure Hunter by Queen Games, which is fantastic, but just didn't get a lot of buzz, I think. Bunny Kingdom, which is pretty cool, beautiful, but I didn't like it as much as Treasure Hunter personally, but it's a great game too. And now Carnival of Monsters, which I've loved. I've noticed playing it with people, it's not for everyone. It's like Bunny Kingdom in that you're drafting cards all from one big deck. So sometimes you get funky draws where the things you really want early in the game don't come out till late in the game and so on. That's a bit annoying, the randomness, I guess. But it's... Alright, so I'm getting close to CanCon. I'll just talk quickly. I think I talked way too much about games and not about publishing, so let's just talk a bit about gaming in Australia, just a bit. I've talked about it on some other actual podcasts before, but also I'll be there soon. And it'll be annoying to have some of the podcasts show with the rumbling of the noise of the car and then some at the quiet hotel. So I want to get it all done so you don't be like, oh, now the sound quality's great. Why didn't you do it all at the hotel? Not that that's how you would talk or ever say such rude things to me, but I'm just projecting there. So Australia is probably as big as continental US. I don't know, something like that. But we got probably the population of Florida. So it's like 22 million people, I think, across that. Now, sure, we're just crossing into ACT, Australian Capital Territory, very brown. Anyway, we'll see Telstra Tower on Black Mountain soon. CanCon will be on my right in a few minutes. Yes, we mostly live in these pockets, these bigger areas, so it feels like there's a big population if you stay there, but really it's not. And because of that, and because especially, like, I don't know, gaming it's taken off, but board gaming isn't quite what it is in other English-speaking, anyway, countries. It is when you're in your game group or in, your house playing with your people at your table, of course. But it's really hard to find games often. We have to pay a lot more always than others. And there's not a lot of conventions, events, board game cafes. Okay, just talking about Sydney. Sydney's got 4 or 5 million in the greater area, huge, bigger, wider area. No board game cafes, pubs, anything like that. Got quite a few board game shops, but they're mostly Magic and other CCG related or focused, mostly. Got some good online shops too, but it's not what you'd think. It's not really an untapped market yet. There's not really a market yet if you're a publisher. I've had a few come to me and say, we'd love you to help us set up more of an operation in Australia. It seems like an untapped market. But then when we start chatting, we realize not yet. Maybe in 5 years, maybe more, I don't know. Don't want to be depressing. I'm talking from a publisher's standpoint there. From a gamer's standpoint, it's great. As far as conventions go, you often hear on podcasts and stuff from America, there's conventions every week if you got the means. But not here. We've got 2 of any great size. One is PAX Australia. That's, of course, very definitely a video game centric convention. But there is a big tabletop area. I heard a rumor that PAX Unplugged in America, in Philadelphia, one of the reasons it took off was because they saw PAX Australia had a great board game thing happening, and it's not as big as the video gaming at PAX Australia, but because we don't really have big conventions, it's done well, the board gaming area, and it was run really well for a long time, the library and all that. So I've been there a couple of times, not to exhibit, but to go to, and for me personally, it's too video gamey for my interest, but there you go. The next one of any size is CanCon, where I'm going today. Now, the great thing about it's my favorite. It's awesome. I love to go every year as a gamer and a presenter, publisher. It's not really an events thing. There's no talks, nothing like that. It's really focused on play. The library is amazing. It's all tournaments all the time as well. The bargains you'll get are terrific. So it's all about buying and playing. It's 3 days. It's free. Wow. Yes, it's free. And you do have to pay, I think, $15 a day for the library, but how good is that free? But because it's free, no one's sure how many people go. I've heard 20,000. I'm not sure it's that many over the 3 days. All they can do is see How many people buy tickets to the library? How many people buy tickets to tournaments, and sort of guess. But yeah, I just think it's great. After that, the next biggest would be in Sydney. It's called LFG, and it's about 800 people. It's in June, over 2.5 days. It's a great one. It's up and coming. Then you're looking at conventions of about 200 people. More exclusive stuff. There's probably one in each state. There's MeepleCon in Melbourne, BorderCon in sort of New South Wales / Victoria. You got, is it Concentric, I think, in South Australia, WabaCon in Western Australia. There's probably others. But yeah, we don't have a huge scene, right? So it's been really hard as a publisher. I used to bring lots of stock to Australia thinking I could sell it directly to shops. It didn't happen that much. Some things, you'd sell a few boxes of, but not enough that you'd be shipping stuff here. And in the end, most shops who order from American or overseas distributors, they might as well chuck some Grail Games stuff in the box as well, that way. So it just wasn't working. I hope that we get a bit of, concentration of, I don't know what I'm saying now, because I'm at CanCon, so I'll turn off in a sec. But yeah, so that's what it's like in Australia. Pretty sparse if you're from Europe or the US. But we love ourselves. We're happy here. We love it. It's great. I'm going to sign off now, and later I'll talk about whatever's left to be on my mind. But I hope you enjoyed that last bit of the drive to Canberra. You're all beautiful human beings. See you later. Hello, I'm back. This is David Harding with the news that I have finished at CanCon. It was lots of fun in Canberra. I love Canberra. I've said that before. CanCon I love. The best thing about CanCon for me personally was I got to play a lot of games that are hot and meaty, and I don't often get to play heavier games, and I don't often get to play new games. I'm always playing games that don't exist yet, prototypes and that, but it was great. So I got to play, if you care, I don't know, Tapestry, which I think is the best Stonemaier published game that I've played. I think I've played them all, I'm not sure, I have to check. I played Taverns of Tiefenthal. We put all the modules in at once, made it very confusing, but it was pretty cool. Villa Paletti, which I got second hand at the con, which was a blast. Just playing it once even was hilarious. Blood Rage. I played Blood Rage for the first time, and I loved it. And while I think of those types of games, my favorite is definitely Inish. I absolutely love that. It's amazing. But this Blood Rage was really good. So much better than I expected it to be for my taste. If I saw it cheap, I'd even consider buying it. It's very pretty, but it's also just at heart a very good area control card drafting game, which is why I liked it a lot, I think. And some really funky things happened in the game, which was fun, as often does in those types of games. What else did I play? Celestia, which I realized last few times I've played that, I played that with the Cloud 9 rules. And Celestia is actually a little different, the remake, where each person is the captain pushing their luck only once, and then it goes to the next person. Whereas I'm sure in Balloon Cup, the captain can keep trying to fly that airship till it crashes. So that was a bit annoying. I played Deep Blue from, Days of Wonder, and I feel like there was something else in there. Anyway, it was fun. Saw some people, saw some games. Before this, I was trying to talk about conventions in Australia compared to other overseas, and just the gaming scene in Australia compared to overseas. I don't think I did that conversation justice. I haven't listened to it. I probably won't. I'll just upload it and hope for the best, or trash it. But I don't think I did a good job because I was focused on other stuff like driving and roadkill, but I don't remember where I was at to go back and fix it or add on. So I'll just keep that conversation going in future shows if I keep doing this. But what I thought I'd do at the end of each show, because this is a show, is talk about one of the games that I've released or produced in turn. So that means today I want to talk about 101, which was the first game I ever printed, produced, published. Not the first game I ever designed, the second game I ever designed that was published. Just quickly talk about that. So before I tell you what it is, I'll tell you the story of how it came to be. So Elevenses had been kickstarted by my brother's company Adventureland, and I wanted to design something else, and I knew by then that I was starting Grail games for sure. So I wanted to start with one of my own games before I started making mistakes and crushing dreams of other people. I wanted to cut my teeth on my own games first, so that'll be a recurring theme for the first few designer look-back diaries, publisher diaries that I do. So I wanted a game that would be cheap to produce, all cards. I wanted a game that would fit in the same box size as Elevenses. And I wanted a game that wouldn't need art so that I could just do the art, so-called, save money. And just get used to the idea of using a manufacturer, using a shipping company, all that stuff. So, what did I do? So I knew, because I have a huge love with abstract games, and I'd always wanted to make an abstract game. And by abstract game, I mean pure abstract, chess, GIF, all that stuff. Go. So, but because I wanted to make a card game, I thought that's interesting. There's not many abstract games that are card games. And I thought, well, what would you do with an abstract card game to make it viable to be done on cards and just not cheap production? Like, yeah, you can make chess with a deck of cards, I guess. The king is a card, all that stuff. But what is it about cards that could make an abstract game seem like it should be made of cards? And I thought, well, they're double-sided. So I thought, okay, an abstract game where the cards get flipped. And 101... So when I was designing the game, mostly in my thoughts at first, then on the train, just to have something in my head, I put ones on one side of the card and zeros on the other side of the card, just to know, okay, actually no, it was X's and O's, like noughts and crosses first, just so I knew one side from the other. And then because I had O's, I thought ones and zeros, binary, two sides of the cards, two players, most abstracts are two players, binary, that's it. It's about ones and zeros, the binary language, and call it binary, and which is a better name. And immediately my head went back to schooling in the early 90s. I guess it would have been late 80s, early 90s, when we had computer classes on Apple IIe's, and people we knew had Apple IIc's, Apple IIe's, all that, then Apple II GS's. And Commodore 64s, and just the basic language. So then I was like, okay, so one player is one, they want one side up to win. One player is zeros, they want the zeros face up to win. But what makes them flip? Commands like print, copy, paste, exit, delete, all these things that you might relate to computers, or at least basic computer language. That would flip the cards, move the cards, delete the cards, all that stuff. It just made itself. It was a bit of work to figure out which commands, how many commands were in each deck, in the deck, all that sort of stuff. And then, of course, the best part I think about that game is that in basic language, computer programming language, each line of code has a number, usually 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. So that you can refer to those different lines of code within the code itself and find things. So, to show the players where they're playing the cards, because it was rows of code, and because most of whatever symbol in the row wins that row, and most rows one wins, that's how the game plays. I thought, well, we'll have cards that say 10, 20, 30, 40 down the side so they know where to play. Bing, boom, of course, then they're worth the points too. So if you, at the end of the game, win the 10 line, you get 10 points. If you win the 20 line, you get 20 points. This makes the 50 line really important because it's worth 50 points, but it's also thematic, and it also brings the game to a finish because you don't spend your whole time fighting over 10s and 20s. You will move down as you play cards when possible because you can't just play anyway from the beginning. As the lines open up, you push down towards the 50 because you want to win the 50 points and the 40 points, because they're worth more points. And when the 50 line's full, the game just ends. Most points wins. I just think talking about it now, it's a cool little game. For years I've hated it. I thought it was stupid, but now that I talk about it, maybe you think it's stupid too if you've played it, but for years I've thought about it like, wow, that works, and it does work, and there's very few games like it. The proudest thing I thought about 101 and 11s as my first two printed designs was there's no other games exactly like this. I sort of did something of me and put it out there instead of just imitated or copied. I'm sure there's subconscious connections to other games there, but they felt different to me, and I loved that. Oh, by the way, I renamed it 101 because I was paranoid because there was already a game or two in the history of the database of Board Game Geek that said there were games called Binary, and even though they would probably never get connected, I just thought, give it a new name, 101, 010111102, no, just 101. So I kickstarted it. I actually somehow, so Rado had the famous, or well-known board game reviewer had just started up, I think, and I loved his stuff because he taught me how to play games. Well, basically, he's a reviewer, but I don't watch his reviews. As a player, I watch his run-throughs, and that tells me usually if I would like the game or not. So I really liked his stuff, and I noticed he'd done a couple of Kickstarter previews already. So I asked him if he'd like to do it, and for some reason he said yes. For some reason he did a great little run-through. A couple of rules he got wrong, but I don't know, that's fine, but it didn't matter. But I learnt a lot through all this stuff. And actually a couple of the reviewers after it was released got rules wrong too, which was quite annoying because they'd suggest changes that were actually the way it's played. But anyway, that's cool, we all do stuff. And I think Rado, even though he wasn't very well known at the time, having a proper so-called video reviewer guy doing a video and say it was a good game really helped it. I don't remember how many funds it raised, 12, 13, 14, 15,000 Australian, but that was certainly enough. So what that did was, so thank you Rado, what that did was it got Grail games going because it helped me to print 101 and reprint 11s. So my brother at Adventureland Games did 11s. He didn't want to keep publishing at that time, so he said, do you just want the game back? I said yes, and I redid it in the Grail Games line. And the 101 funds, I didn't have anything left, but that paid for printing 101 and 11s because they're both very cheap games to print. Alright, so what went well with it, what went badly with it? Okay, it was never going to become a famous game because I was a nobody. And it's a weird niche thing, which I liked. I think that's cool. So I printed 3,000 copies of 101, and they all sold out within a year. And I was very happy with that, and I should have been. You can never guarantee in this business that you'd ever sell 3,000, especially not your first game. So that's great. But I stuffed up a lot of stuff. Okay, first thing, the rule book was really hard to get through. It was my first rule book. Before publishing games, I was an author, so I thought I could do rules, and I can. Alright, but that first one it was just too long and overwrought. And it was, for a 10-minute playing game, it took half an hour to figure out the rules probably. So that was bad. Or what else? I I made mistakes with the fulfillment, nothing that anyone would have seen. It fulfilled without a hitch and on time. The game released to backers early, so that's great. But I stuffed up a bit. The main thing I did was I brought I think about 1,000 copies of the 3,000 to Australia. That was a bad move because I had to keep shipping them back to America where the game sold in any quantity. So I spent a fortune shipping the game here, then shipping the game to America in a couple of hundred as the time goes. That was ridiculous, but I learned a lot from that. And that's a whole issue that I was sort of trying to get to with my talking about conventions before in Australia, that the industry's very different here. I will never send 1,000 copies of a game here again, for a few years to go anyway. So that was a bit annoying. And also, I did all the art, all the graphic design and all the formatting of the files. Before I was an author even, I was a graphic designer and I was trained in all that stuff. But when you haven't done that sort of a hands-on creative thing, that's not just creative but practical, in that you need to know software and how things work, not just theory. I'd lost a lot of my skills, and for example, I was trained in desktop publishing on Quark Express, this big program, but didn't exist anymore, and I didn't know the alternative, Adobe InDesign, yet. So I did it all in Illustrator. This is probably a boring conversation for a lot of people. You don't know what I'm talking about, but did it in Adobe Illustrator, which is great for lots of things, but not necessarily for rule books and stuff. I also did a couple of mistakes with the design on the cards that no one without a trained eye would notice, because I just wasn't in the practice of doing it. No one complained about it who was a backer or bought the game, but a couple of people noticed some things there. That's fine. But the main reason that was annoying that I did all this in Illustrator was for the next couple of games I was married to Illustrator. All I ended up needing to do was sit with InDesign for an hour or two and I could figure it out because of my background. But anyway, so that put me back a bit. The reason why it put me back a bit is a whole other conversation, dealing with art files and how you get something ready to print, desktop publishing, manufacture, all that stuff I won't talk about now, because I'm boring myself, to be honest. If this is exciting for you, let me know in the comments. What else? So yeah, the main thing I learned with 101 is to have faith that you can do something that people will buy, even if it's not going to make you rich. Have faith that you can make something that people will want to play. It can happen. Took a lot of work, but it happened. Didn't happen overnight, but it happened. But also, just through the process of doing it, that first game, even though I had all my eggs in a row with distribution and manufacturing quotes and all that stuff, I learnt so much from doing that. How not to waste money and how to have better planning and goals. But you don't know this stuff till you do it. So thank goodness I did my first couple of games were my designs and not someone else who would have had every right to say, what the heck have you just done? Or is everything okay over there? Maybe I don't want you to have my next game, etc., etc. So there you go. 101 is probably impossible to find right now unless you find it secondhand. It's probably really cheap. Give it a go. Maybe I should put up a how to play video. If I reprinted it, I'd put out a how to play video, because you could learn from a video how to play in a couple of minutes as opposed to reading that rule book. But anyway, it's all there. It's just very overwrought and convoluted. So, thanks for listening. I love you all. I'm going to put this on YouTube, I guess, because I don't know how else to do anything. I don't know if there'll be music, jingles, whatever. I'll try and do this regularly, even if it gets just 50 hits, I don't care, or views. I like to talk about games. I was thinking about this today. The cool thing about board games and why so many get so full on into the hobby is you can talk about games like a movie, like a book, like an artwork, but it's something you actually interact with, and that's rare in the world, isn't it? I think that's a really cool... I think that's why board games for many people just hit it off, you know. You just love them. You love talking about them, thinking about them, digesting them literally, you know, playing them, discussing them, exploring them, all that sort of stuff. And I just like to do that whether or not I'm a publisher. So I want to keep talking about it. I want to talk about games in depth. I think this episode's been a bit of just listing games, but I want to discuss, divulge, and we'll get there. Hopefully you found those thoughts about 101 interesting. I probably will kick myself when I get out of the car and don't have to concentrate on driving of all the things I should have said. But anyway, have a great day. Love yous all. Yous all great. You're all fantastic. Goodbye.